It's weird, isn't it?
My dad died a couple of years ago, and I was asleep one night and I was having a dream, and it was a dream about children. I was at the seaside and there were some little holiday chalets, because we used to go on holiday to Laysdown, and there were all these little coloured chalets. And suddenly my dad walked into the dream in his full army uniform. He was in the Second World War. I never ever saw him dressed in his army uniform. I did see photos of him, but without any hat or anything on. But my dad was walking towards me with a flat army hat on, and he moved the children out of the way, as if they weren't part of this dream anymore. And while this was happening, I felt my body really becoming sort of excited. My heart was racing, in real life, I mean, not in my dream. And my father took me in his arms and he started dancing with me. And my dad was a great dancer, and the only time we ever danced, which was very briefly, was at my wedding, which was 10 years ago. And shortly after that he died. And we danced, and it just felt fantastic. And then, almost immediately, it was as if the dream stopped, and this arm and hand was reaching towards me, coming towards me, and I was reaching my arm out to it. But I wasn't. I was in bed with my arms sort of like this. I was reaching out to this arm, and we touched, and our hands touched. And I thought, I knew it was my dad. I'm going cold now thinking about it. And it was like an electric shock went right through me and gave me the biggest high, the most fantastic feeling. It was just wonderful, wonderful feeling. And I let go because I thought I should have. And I woke up. And I wanted to tell everyone, Daddy's just been to see. I wanted to tell my mum, I've just seen Daddy. And my brothers and my sister. I knew it was him. It's never happened to me since. And it hasn't happened to anyone else in my family. And I still believe that I will never ever again see a ghost. I don't think that I am susceptible, but for that one time I know he came to me. There's no question. I know it wasn't a dream.
I woke up, what time I can't tell you, early hours of the morning, and looked across at the other pillow, and floating above the pillow, about that high above the pillow, was a green gaseous ball of indeterminate kind of whatever.
I'd love to see a ghost. I'm really up for seeing a ghost.
And I went to myself, good God, that's very, very odd. And as I lifted my head in this direction off the pillow to look at it, it came floating towards me. And it went poof. And complete rapture just took over, and I vibrated from the top of my head to the tips of my toes. The whole body went up again, golden glow of rapture.
Spike Milligan was at home listening to the radio one day. When he looked at his watch, it had stopped at 4:20, so he toddled into the kitchen to check the clock, which had also stopped at 4:20. Next of all, the phone rang, and it was the speaking clock calling him to tell him at the next signal it would be 4:20 and 20 seconds. He immediately called the phone company, who assured him the speaking clock would never call you. The next day, Spike learned his grandmother had popped her clogs at 4:20 that very afternoon.
Linda and I spent so much time on the phone together when we first started going out with each other. And this was the time when I was doing Brookside, and I was in bed and it was late at night. My mum and dad were away and I was the only person living in the house.
He was in Liverpool, I was in London, and we were talking, one of our late night conversations that go on for 2 hours.
And we're into like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning now.
Sam had told me about a ghost in his house, and it was a relative on his mother's side. And that this particular ghost used to move things or turn things on and off.
And every now and again the TV would switch itself on for some unknown reason.
He said, just a minute, and he went away and fiddled with something. He came back.
And I picked the remote control up and I turned the TV off. And she said, what happened? I said, don't worry about it, because that kind of thing freaks Linda out. So the conversation carries on, and literally 5 or 10 seconds later, boom, the TV comes on again. So I said, just give me a second. I put my hand over the phone. I said,
will you just go away? He said out loud.
And she said, who are you talking to? I said, it doesn't matter. She said, who are you talking to? I said, I'm talking to the ghost in the house.
I said, what do you mean? He said, well, I turned the telly off twice and it's come back on.
So she kind of got a bit freaked, you know, because the wee small hours, and she, like I say, it freaks her out. So I switch it off again with the remote control. And as soon as I switched it off, bump, it came on again. And I said, hang on 1 second. And I put the phone down on the side, and I walked over and I unplugged the TV. And I said, now, it can't bother me again. Boom, the TV came on. And I thought, right, now I'm officially freaked out. So I said, will you leave me alone? And the television went off on its own. And as soon as it went off,
The police cut in on our line and said, could you get off the phone? We've got some information regarding somebody's grandmother.
so as soon as she put the phone down, she said, you know, my real name's McGlashan. So she said, Mr. McGlashan, we've got an emergency. Your grandmother's just died, and that was the house she lived in. It's the house my dad was brought up in. She's literally just died, and I've been trying to intercept the call. You know, I've got to tell you that's what's happened. And that was my assumption was it was my grandma coming through to tell us that, you know, she needed to contact somebody to tell her what had happened.
I was sharing an apartment and suddenly became aware of a very heavy presence that seemed to keep oppressing me.
I don't believe the ghost is a conscious moving force of the person that was living. I believe a ghost is either a memory that we pick up on in a particularly sensitive emotional time, or it is literally just an emotional recording in the brickwork.
And I was talking about this oppressive kind of spirit ghost thing, whatever it was, and it was really depressing me. And in the kitchen, and I said, just a minute, and I had to go and have a Jimmy Riddle. So I went into the bathroom, and while I was taking a leak, I went, with the Dutch courage, I went, OK, if you've got something to say it now. And we used to have this light switch as bathrooms in Great Britain in those days, where there used to be this cord coming down from the ceiling. And it was as if someone had got the end of the piece of cord, where the plastic little bit at the end of it, and it had gone, and the cord went, and I went, oh no, you know, zipping up, peeing on the floor and leaving the room very quickly. Well, I went back. I mean, it was pretty terrifying, but I went back and I tried everything to try and recreate a situation where I might have physically brushed this light switch. It was impossible for me to do it. The distance was too far. Even if I'd brushed it when I went in, it would have swung lazily like that. But this was as if someone had it and was snaking it like that. Now, what I'm supposed to read from this message, you know, when I said, we've got something to say it now, I've got no idea, you see. And this is where it all kind of falls apart, because if they were trying to get through to me with some kind of message, that was it, you know, shaking the light switch. It's not good enough, really, is it? However, the next day, I went to that apartment, and it was as if someone had opened all the windows. It was absolutely wonderful. It was the fresh air, and this presence had gone, which was marvellous.
I think angels walk among us every day.
And this arm came around me, and it held me here, and squeezed me like that, and went, it's all right. Everything's all right. And I went, oh my God.
And what was also very weird was the sense, not just of having been there before, but of having been, at the risk of sounding really flaky, but having been there before as a man.
It's the wind-up. It's not. Oh my God, go on.